Thank you. We've had an election. The clear message is the American people are on the side of trade skeptics who don't think that the trade deals we've entered into in the past have been good. And what we're going to see is a bait and switch, because now we're being told that the only problem is multilateral trade deals. Well, TTIP is a bilateral trade deal. Of course, we're a union of 50 states. They're a semi-union of dozens of states. NAFTA, which is held out to be the worst deal, you could call it a bilateral deal, but all the controversial provisions are the U.S.-Mexico provisions. If it was just a U.S.-Canada deal, I don't think it would be discussed much. So NAFTA's controversial positions are in effect a bilateral deal. The South Korea deal, which cost us as much in jobs as any on a pound-for-pound basis, is a bilateral deal. So what we're going to be told is that the Wall Street elite should control American trade policy to the destruction of the American middle class, but we should insist that they do it on a case-by-case, country-by-country basis. I would submit that American workers should not compete with 40 cents an hour Vietnamese labor that cannot organize and has no freedom, whether it's part of a TPP or whether it's an individual deal. Now, I've been told that our witnesses are generally tradeophiles rather than trade skeptics. Is that a mischaracterization of any of you? No. And so, notwithstanding the wave and the message, the only loud message that came from the American people, those who support these trade deals continue to dominate the discussion here in Washington. In looking at a trade deal, and there are some worthy of support, the issues that come up are investor state, low wages, labor rights, environmental protection, currency manipulation, and balance of trade. Well, with Britain, low wages, I think, is one of the big problems, because in theory, a trade deal should equalize wages in both contracting parties. Well, British wages are relatively high. Labor rights, they've got stronger labor rights than we do. Are any of our witnesses familiar with American right-to-work laws? I don't see any, but I'll point out that the State Department has testified before Judge Poe and my subcommittee back in the day that our right-to-work laws are a violation of the UN Declaration of Human Rights and international labor standards, because they, in effect, make it impossible to organize unions. Environmental protections are strong in Britain, viewed on a world standard, and I haven't seen serious currency manipulation. So let's go back to investor state. We're told in other trade agreements that we have to surrender our sovereignty and give giant corporations a second way to attack our environmental and protections and consumer protections in order to give our corporations a fair shot when they're doing business abroad. Do our witnesses generally agree that American business can get a fair shake in British courts, and therefore it's not necessary to have investor state protections for American corporations? Dr. Hamilton? If you can just give me a yes or no, I got to answer with this. Yep. Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Gardner? Balance of trade. Would a deal with Britain that simply eliminated all tariffs be good or bad for reducing America's trade deficit? Dr. Gardner? Or it's possible that it can't be estimated, but if you have an estimate, let me know.
Well, it would be good for the trade deficit. It would be good for the U.S. economy.
I didn't ask the economy.
Yeah.
Would it? We have the largest trade deficit in the history of mammalian life. Would a trade deal with Britain make that worse or better, or you don't know?
It would not make it worse. I think that the United States would benefit from such a deal.
Okay. Mr. Lester?
I can't estimate it, but I also don't think trade deficits are bad for the economy.
We lose 10,000 jobs for every $1 billion of trade deficit, and if you're not one of those 10,000 people, then your statement, go on, Dr. Hamilton.
the U.S. has a trade deficit in goods with the European Union and the U.K., but it has a trade surplus in services.
Yeah, and I'm looking for the unified. Some trade skeptics only focus on goods, and
my point was,
services matter
if
as
you can
well.
open up the services economy across the Atlantic, the United States stands to benefit considerably.
Okay. And finally, I'll point out that Britain has a health system that makes Obamacare look like it came from the Cato Institute, and I yield back.